Hi and good morning everyone. Thank you for being here today. Today, our group will discuss a topic that many students can easily relate to, which is the challenge of online learning. My name is Chong. This is my roommate, Anna and Shermila.
Hi.
Over the past few years, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, online learning became extremely common in many schools and universities around the world. Many students had to silently adapt to studying from home using digital platforms such as Zoom, Google Meet, Google Classroom, or other learning systems. Although online learning offers certain advantages such as flexibility, convenience, and the ability to attend classes from anywhere, many students still experience severe difficulty when trying to learn effectively in this environment. Therefore, in today's discussion, we will talk about some of the most common problems that students face during online learning, and we will also share a few personal experiences and opinions based on what we have observed or experienced ourselves. Before we go deeper into the discussions, I would like to begin with a simple question for both of you. In your opinion, do you think online learning is easier or more difficult compared to traditional face-to-face learning in the classroom?
Personally, I believe that online learning is actually more difficult for many students, even though at first it may seem easier. In the beginning, it looked very convenient because we could attend classes from home without needing to travel to campus or wake up very early in the morning. However, after some time, I realized that it became much harder to stay focused and motivated during online classes. When we study at home, there are simply too many distractions around us, such as social media, television, family members, or even the comfort of our bed. Because of these distractions, it can be quite challenging to maintain the same level of concentration that we usually have in a physical classroom.
Yes, I actually agree with that point. From my perspective, online learning is indeed convenient in certain ways because we do not need to travel to campus or spend time commuting. However, despite this convenience, online learning also brings many challenges that students have to deal with. One of the biggest problems that I personally faced during online classes was internet connection issue, especially when the class was very important or when the lecturer was explaining a complicated topic. When the internet connection becomes unstable, it can interrupt the entire learning progress and make it difficult for students to understand the lesson properly.
Yes, that is a very common experience that many students share. In fact, internet connection problems are often one of the first complaints students mention when discussing about online learning. So, let's start our discussion by talking more about these particular issues. The first challenge of the issue is internet connection problems. One of the most common challenges in online learning is unstable or poor internet connection. Without a strong and reliable internet connection, it becomes very difficult for students to follow the class smoothly or participate actively in the lessons. For an example, students may experience delay, frozen screens, or sudden discrimination when attending an online lecture. So, I would like to ask both of you, what are your thoughts or experiences regarding these issues?
Yes, I definitely think that internet problems are one of the biggest frustrations for students during online learning. Sometimes the video suddenly freezes, the audio becomes unclear, or the class disconnects completely without any warning. When these problems happen, students may miss important explanation from the lecturer, especially if the lecturer is explaining a key concept or giving instruction for assignment. Because of this, students may later feel confused or left behind compared to other classmates who did not experience the same problem.
Yes, I can relate to this situation because it actually happened to me before during one of my online lectures. While the lecturer was explaining an important topic, my internet connection suddenly disconnected without any warning. I tried to reconnect as quickly as possible, but it took a few minutes before I could join the class again. By the time I managed to reconnect, the lecturer had already moved on to another topic. Because I missed the earlier explanation, I felt quite confused and had to ask my classmate later to explain what I missed.
Yes, that situations can definitely affect students' understanding of the lesson and may even cause unnecessary stress. It can be especially stressful when internet problems occur during important activities such as group discussions, presentation, or online tests.
Exactly. For example, imagine you are presenting your assignment in front of the class and suddenly your internet connection becomes unstable or your microphone stops working. In that situation, it can make the whole presentation awkward and stressful because you cannot communicate your idea clearly to the lecturer and your classmates.
Yes, and sometimes we also need to repeat what we say many times because other people cannot hear us clearly. So when that happens, the discussion becomes slower or and less efficient, and it can interrupt the natural flow of communication in the class.
Yes, that's absolutely true. So, from these discussions, we can clearly see that internet connectivity plays a very important role in the success of online learning. Now, let us move on to another challenge that many students often mention. A second challenge is lack of interaction. Another issue that many students frequently talk about is the lack of interaction during online classes. In traditional classrooms, students can easily ask questions, share opinions, and interact directly with their lecturers and classmates. However, in online learning environments, interactions sometimes feel more limited and less natural.
Yes, I have noticed that as well. In many online classes, students prefer to keep their cameras and microphones turned off most of the time. As a result, the lecturer often ends up talking for a long time without receiving much response from students. This situation can make the classes feel less lively and less engaging compared to a face-to-face classroom.
That's very true. When there is less interaction in the class. Students may start to feel disconnected from the learning process. Some students may also feel shy or uncomfortable asking questions during online classes, especially when many people are present in the virtual meeting.
Yes, interaction is actually a very important part of the learning process. When students actively participate in discussions, ask questions, and exchange ideas, they are more likely to understand the topic better.
Another issue is that lecturers cannot easily observe students' reaction during online classes. In physical classrooms, lecturers can quickly notice if students look confused, bored, or interested just by observing their facial expressions and body language. But in online classes, this is much harder to see.
Exactly, because of this limitation, the overall learning experience may become less engaging for both students and lecturers. Now, let's briefly discuss one more challenge before we move to the academic part of our discussions. Challenge of 3 is low motivation. Another challenge that students often experience during online learning is low motivation. Study from home may seem comfortable at first, but it can also make students feel less motivated to focus on their studies.
Yes, this happens because there are many distractions at home, such as social media, television, mobile phones, or even noisy from family members. All these distractions can reduce students' ability to concentrate during online classes.
In addition, students may also feel tired from looking at computer or phone screen for a long period of time. After several hours of online classes, it becomes very difficult to maintain focus and energy.
Yes, spending too much time in front of a screen can cause fatigue and reduce students' concentration levels. So based on our discussion so far, we can see that online learning presents several challenges such as internet connectivity problems, lack of interactions, and low motivation among students. Now, in the second part of our discussions, we will examine this topic from a more academic perspective and discuss some possible solutions that educators and institutions can implement. In this second segment of our discussions, we will analyze the topic of online learning challenge from a more academic and critical perspective. Over the past decades, and particularly after the COVID-19 pandemic, online learning has become an essential component of modern education systems. Many educational institutions around the world have adopted digital learning platforms to ensure that teaching and learning activities can continue despite physical limitations. Although online learning provides several advantages such as flexibility, accessibility, and the opportunity for students to access learning materials from different locations, various students have shown that students do encounter multiple difficulties when adapting to this learning environment. These difficulties are not limited to technology factors alone. They also involve issues related to students' participations, motivation, and their ability to effectively process and retain academic knowledge. Therefore, in these discussions, we will examine three main issues associated with online learning. First, We will analyze technological barriers which involve access to internet connectivity and digital devices. Second, we will discuss student engagement, which refers to the level of participation and interaction among students during the learning process. Finally, we will examine learning effectiveness, which focus on whether online learning enables students to achieve the intended educational outcomes. Let us begin by discussing the first issue, which is technological barriers. The first issue is technological barriers.
The first issue that deserves attention in online learning is technological barriers. Technology serves as the primary medium through which online learning takes place. Students depend on digital platforms to attend lectures, communicate with lecturers, submit assignments, and access academic resources. However, not all students have equal access to the technological infrastructure required for effective online learning. For example, students living in rural or remote areas may experience unstable internet connection due to limited network coverage. As a result, they may encounter difficulties joining synchronous classes of downloading learning materials. When internet connections are unstable, students may miss certain explanations during lectures, which can disrupt their understanding of the topic being discussed.
Yes, I agree with that observation. Another important aspect of technological barrier is the issue of digital inequality. Digital inequality refers to the unequal distribution of technological resource among individuals or communities. Some students have access to modern laptops, high-speed internet connection, and comfortable study environment. These resources allow them to participate more effectively in online learning activities. However, other students may rely solely on mobile phone for attending lectures or completing assignments. While smartphones are convenient for communication, they may not be suitable for performing more complex academic tasks such as preparing research paper, analyzing data, or reading legibly academic article. Consequently, this digital gap may create differences in learning opportunities and academic performance among students.
That is a very important point. From an academic perspective, digital inequality raises concerns about fairness and accessibility in education. When students do not have equal access to technological resources, their learning experience may differ significantly from one another. Some students may be able to participate fully in discussions and activities, while others may struggle simply to stay connected during the class. Furthermore, technical disruptions such as unstable internet connection may interrupt the flow of lectures. This may cause students to lose focus and reduce their overall comprehension of the subject matter.
In order to address these issues, educational institutions must play an active role in supporting students. For instance, universities could provide financial assistance or internet subsidies to students who face difficulties accessing stable internet service. Institutions may also introduce device loan programs where students can borrow laptops or tablets for academic purpose. This innovation can help reduce technological barriers and ensure that all students have more equitable opportunity to engage in online learning.
Okay, in addition to institution initiative, lecturers can also adopt certain instruction strategies to support students who face technological challenges. One practical strategy is to provide recorded lectures and supplementary learning materials through the learning management system. By doing so, students who are unable to attend the live session due to connectivity issues can still access the lecture later and review the material at their own pace. This approach not only improves accessibility but also allows students to revisit complex topics whenever necessary.
Yes, that is an excellent strategy. Recorded lectures, flexible learning resources, and supportive institutional policies can significantly reduce the negative impact of technological barriers. Now that we have examined technological challenges, let us move on to the second issue, which is student engagement. Issue 2 is student engagement. The second issue we will examine is student engagement. Student engagement refers to the extent to which students actively participate in learning activities, interact with their peers and lecturers, and demonstrate interest in the subject matter. In traditional classroom setting, engagement is often encouraged through direct communications, group discussions, and collaborative activities. However, maintaining the same level of engagement can be more difficult in an online learning environment.
Yes, this difficulty often occurs because online learning reduces the level of face-to-face interaction between lecturers and students. In virtual classrooms, communication usually occurs through video conferencing platforms, discussion forums, or chat functions. Although these tools facilitate communication, they may not fully replicate the natural interaction that occurs in physical classrooms. As a result, some students may become passive learners who simply listen to lectures without actively participating in discussions.
Another factor that influences student engagement is the sense of isolation that students may experience during online learning. In traditional classrooms, students have the opportunity to interact with classmates before and after class lectures, work together on group tasks, and participate in classroom discussion. However, in online learning environments, these opportunities for social interaction may be limited. When students feel isolated from their peers, they may become less motivated to actively participate in the learning progress.
That is an important point. When students feel disconnected from their learning community, their level of engagement may gradually decrease. Therefore, lecturers must adopt teaching strategies that encourage active participations.
One effective strategy is the integration of interactive learning activities during online sessions. For example, lecturers can organize breakout room discussion where students work in small groups to discuss specific topics. Lecturers can also use online quiz, polls, or problem-solving activities to stimulate students' interest and encourage participation. This interactive element can transform online classes from passive listening session into more dynamic learning experience.
Yes, interactive learning activities also promote collaboration among students. When students are encouraged to share ideas, discuss different perspectives, and work together on academic tasks, they develop a deeper understanding of the subject matter. Additionally, collaborative learning can help create a sense of community within the online classroom, which may increase students' motivation and engagement.
Exactly. Therefore, improving student engagement is a critical factor in ensuring the success of online learning. Now, we will proceed to the final issues, which is learning effectiveness. The final issue we will discuss is learning effectiveness. Learning effectiveness refers to how well students are able to understand, retain, and apply the knowledge that they gain through the learning process. Some students perceive online learning as less effective compared to traditional classroom learning. One reason for this perception is the absence of direct supervision from lecturers. In a physical classroom, lecturers can monitor students' attention and provide immediate feedback when necessary.
Another important factor is that online learning requires students to possess strong self-discipline and self-regulation skills. Students must manage their own schedules, organize their study time, and ensure that they complete assignments independently. Without proper time management or motivation, students may find it difficult to maintain consistent learning habits.
Yes, that's why the development of independent learning skills is essential in online education. Students need to cultivate habits such as setting clear study goals, manage their time effectively, and regularly reviewing course materials. These skills enable students to adapt more successfully to online learning environments. In our conclusions, online learning has become an integral component of contemporary education and offers numerous advantages, including flexibility and accessibility. However, it also presents a very significant challenge that must be addressed.
Among the major challenges discussed today are technological barriers, limited student engagement, and concerns regarding the overall effectiveness of online learning.
Despite these challenges, various strategies can be implemented to improve the quality of online education. These include providing technological support, adopting interactive teaching methods, and encouraging students to develop strong independent learning skills. Ultimately, the effectiveness of online learning depends on the collaborative effort of educational institutions, lecturers, and students. Through continuous improvement and adaptation, it is possible to create a more effective and inclusive online learning environment for all many learners. So thank you for your attention.